When designing a wedding flat lay, I believe that you should use elements that tell the story of the wedding and the couple. Some of my personal favorites include the wedding invitation suite, flowers from the bridal bouquet or arrangements, or even personal wedding mementos. Oftentimes, the invitation suite is the first page of the overall wedding story, and so using this to help you construct the different elements you want to bring into your flat lay design is hugely helpful when creating a cohesive storyline. Alright, so for this flat lay, we're again going to be using our styling blocks. This suite that I've pulled for this one is a really fun watercolor suite for a wedding in Provence. I think because this feels a little bit more young and fun and casual, and the south of France naturally has a more relaxed vibe as compared to the suite we were looking at before. I do want to create something that tells that story and feels a little bit more fun and relaxed. And so for a suite like this, I decided to pull some citrus elements because I think it's really fun to kind of bring in some of that golden color, and it just feels very summer and, you know, south of France to me. And then I also pulled in a couple of these linen swatches. I like to use linen swatches occasionally in flat lays because they offer, you know, a new texture, a new color, and it's kind of fun just to bring in, you know, a little square of something. And so we'll be playing with those a little bit. And then I also have some vintage stamps, which feel very French, a blue ring box, and then just a book for, you know, some level and texture if we want to use that. So again, we're going to go for a very, very full look to begin with, and then start pulling things back to create a more refined look. And so because this is a little bit more casual of a feel, I'm not going to focus so much on totally straight angles. I just don't think that matters quite so much. We have fun colors and shapes to play with, and so I want to allow everything to feel a little bit more casual. So that is what we're doing here. I think this green up here is feeling a little too present given that it doesn't have an address printed on it. So I think we're going to save that little pop of color for somewhere else. And so I think when you're styling things in a little bit more of an organic nature, sometimes you have to allow yourself to sort of make it structured and then figure out how to unstructure it so that it does feel organic the way you want it to. So you're not just sort of piling things on. I think sometimes that's a concern. So you can see I've got my BBJ swatches here, but I think kind of pulling them up here, it's gonna be kind of a fun thing to do. I'm gonna wipe off this ring dish. We can imagine, you know, some vintage stamps in here. Ideally, you know, some with a little bit of color. I love the orange and the pink coming in here. And then maybe we bring our ring box down here. So we've got a lot of round shapes going on, and I think that's okay here. But I do love the way this feels. It feels a little bit more, you know, sprawled out, like someone took a trip to France. They're coming for the wedding. They kind of just laid everything out on the dresser when they got to their hotel or chateau or whatever. So it feels a little bit more organic, but you can still sort of read the story from left to right, kind of going down. You see the color, you see the texture, and you really feel the story of a wedding in the south of France. So this would be sort of the maximalist approach here. And then I think the two things you would really want to highlight in this case are the map and this vow book because they're so adorable. And so if we are just taking a look at the map here, I think that something like this would be really fun. And again, lots of round shapes, but I'm not too bothered by that in this case. Maybe we're gonna pull these out. Oh yeah, much more fun without the color in this case. So something like that, you can kind of come in and get those different vignettes as you wish. You can kind of keep pulling back from there. And then again, pulling back. I also think that this map would be a really fun place to get a shoe shot in if you were looking for something like that. And then you could even pull in that main invitation for something like this, but you're gonna wanna remember to keep your levels. So a shot like that with, you know, some details like this. I think lots of fun options for a more minimal approach to something that feels very organic. And then the last thing I want to show you here, vintage stamps everywhere, is the concept of things really truly just sort of piled together. I think maybe not that. I think something like this with a ring shot is also super fun and kind of tells this organic story. So that is another take on a less formal invitation suite. I'm actually going to flip this styling board over onto the back side. We've got a really beautiful white on here, and change gears as far as style goes quite a bit. So we just went from the relaxed south of France, and now we are taking things to a much more formal, classic place. We have this really beautiful suite here, and it's actually a sample that I have on hand, so I need to do some work to kind of keep that hidden, but we're playing with these, a bow tie, and these really fun shoes. So again, like always, we're going to start with the very most. More is more, almost always, but it is really fun to kind of test yourself and see if you can make something really interesting with less. And so I like to practice both when I'm styling. So because these shoes are so amazing, we definitely want to make sure we get those in there. And I personally like to rotate between, you know, what's more important. Obviously this RSVP card is really beautiful, but I am just really loving this black and gold calligraphy right here. I think it's just so much fun. And so one thing you want to look at, when I just laid these down, it looked like these two things were on the same field, and that's not something we want to do. It's not super interesting for the eye. And so maybe we're going to switch things a little bit. I need another spacer. Kind of go like this. We're going to want to tuck this in a little bit more. Kind of all about adjusting and checking your angles and making sure, are things too level? Are they not level enough? You know, are the things that we want to be straight? Are the things that we want to be more organic, feeling that way? And so liking this right here. I think that adding in this bow tie is a really fun detail. Obviously, this is a very formal wedding, and I think that telling that story is really fun. I'm gonna pull in this ring here. Okay, so again, a very maximalist approach here to, yeah, let's go ahead and add in a groom's ring here. Perfect. So we've got a very maximalist image here. I think it feels modern and it feels clean because we've kind of got these cascading lines. Everything's very straight, but you still have those really romantic elements that play with the crest here. You've got the shoes, you've got the curve of the bow tie, and of course the curve of the calligraphy. And so from a maximalist point, I love how this is looking, but I do want to play with paring it back a little bit. And so what we're going to do here is play with this really gorgeous vellum liner and the shoes a bit more. I think sort of an overhead shot like this with, you know, bow tie and the ring. That right there is a really, really fun classic shot. I also think if we pull the shoes back, something super minimal just like that is also really gorgeous. It's classic, but it tells this really structured, sophisticated story. Now, one thing that I love about vellum liners is that you can kind of use them how you wish. This is obviously framing the invitation suite, but I love the idea of letting this frame the ring box as well for a really structured sort of frame around that. So I think that would also be a really lovely image right there. And then of course, anytime we can pull in beautiful calligraphy, invitation envelopes, I think that's a win. Something like that is obviously gorgeous, but if we wanted to take it a step further and kind of bring in these shoes, I think I love bridal shoes because so many of our brides really invest in a gorgeous pair of wedding shoes, and I love to highlight that. But they are tricky because you have to get them at just the right angle in order to make them look the way you want them to. So you have to practice a little bit with that. In this case, I actually think we need to swap things around a bit so that we can get the angles that we want here. So something like that, super, super classic, really chic, and then just as beautiful paired back with a ring box. It's all about the levels and figuring out what should overlap, what should be straight on, and what should feel more organic. So another beautiful flat lay on a gorgeous surface.